The thing people never understand about me is that my success looks invisible to the people who raised me. I'm 31. I'm a licensed CPA and a senior financial analyst at a regional investment firm in Nashville. I own a 2-bedroom condo that I bought at 28 with money I saved during 4 years of working 60-hour weeks and eating rice and beans 3 nights a week. The condo is worth about $380,000 now. I drive a 7-year-old Civic with 94,000 miles on it because I chose equity over appearances. My younger sister got married last April. That's where this story starts, or maybe that's where it ends. I'm still not sure which. The gap between who I am and who my family thinks I am has always been there, but I learned to live inside it the way you learn to live with a bad knee. You compensate, you adjust, you stop running. My parents are both from a small town in rural Georgia. My father worked 30 years at a paper mill. My mother cleaned houses until her back gave out. They are not bad people. I want to say that because it matters, and because what happened does not erase what they gave me. But love and harm can live in the same house, and in my family they shared a bedroom. My sister, I'll call her my sister because that's what she is, even now, is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, she was the pretty one, the easy one, the one who made my parents laugh. I was the one with the scholarships and the spreadsheets and the part-time job at 16 to buy my own school supplies. My parents weren't neglectful, they just had a limited amount of softness, and she was closer to the front of the line when it was being handed out. I didn't resent her for that. Not as a child. You accept the family you're born into. The same way you accept the weather. What I didn't accept, what I should have named out loud years earlier, was the expectation that came attached to my paychecks. It started small. Can you help with Mom's car registration? Can you cover the electric this month? Can you spot us for Christmas dinner? I said yes every time because I had money and they didn't, and I loved them, and that felt like enough of a reason. What I didn't realize, and what took me years to understand, is that every yes trained them to see my bank account as a shared resource. My money was not mine. In their logic, my money was family infrastructure. By the time I was 29, I had quietly paid for my sister's car insurance for 2 years, covered a dental emergency for my father, sent my mother $400 a month every month for what she called just getting by, and written a check for $12,000 toward my sister's wedding venue deposit when she got engaged 18 months ago. $12,000. I didn't hesitate. I wired it the same day she asked. She cried on the phone and called me her best friend and said she didn't know what she'd do without me. She did not put my name in the wedding program. I noticed it during the rehearsal dinner when her future mother-in-law asked me which side of the family I was from. I said I was the bride's sister. The woman looked confused and said, "Oh, I thought you were one of the venue coordinators." My sister was standing 6 feet away. She heard. She turned back to her fiancé and kept talking. I swallowed it. I had gotten very good at swallowing things. The month before the wedding, my parents asked to meet me for dinner. Just the 3 of us, no my sister, which should have been my first signal that something was wrong because the 3 of us had not eaten together alone since my college graduation. We went to an Applebee's near their house, and my father ordered a beer, and my mother folded her hands on the table and looked at me the way she looks at me when she wants something that she already knows I won't like. She said my sister and her fiancé were having trouble with the down payment on their first house. I said I was sorry to hear that. My father said the housing market was brutal for young people. I said I agreed. My mother said they had been thinking about what family could do in a moment like this. I put down my fork. She said that I had been so successful and that they were so proud of me, and that the condo had appreciated so much, and that I was still young and could build equity again, and that it would mean everything to her, to both of them, to see my sister get started in a real home, and wouldn't it be a wonderful gift to announce at the wedding, a mother-daughter unit kind of thing, the condo going to them as a wedding gift? I could stay with my parents for a while until I got back on my feet. I said no, not unkindly, not loudly. I just said no, I'm not giving them my condo. My father set down his beer very slowly. My mother looked at the table. The silence lasted about 15 seconds and felt like a month. Then my father said I had always been selfish, that I had always been selfish, that my sister needed this and I had it to give, and a real family member would not have to think about it for even 1 second. He said the condo was just property, and property was just money, and money was not more important than blood. I paid for dinner and drove home and sat in my car in the parking garage for 40 minutes before I could go upstairs. I did not change my mind. The wedding was at a restored barn venue outside of Franklin, Tennessee. White string lights everywhere, long wooden tables, a bluegrass band that my sister had been excited about for 8 months. I had helped address 300 invitations by hand on a Saturday in February. I had picked up the custom cake topper from a shop in Germantown when the vendor couldn't deliver. I had ironed my bridesmaid dress twice because the first time I didn't get the hem quite right. I wore it with a smile, and I meant the smile, mostly, because whatever was happening between my parents and me, my sister was still my sister, and it was still her day. My parents were different with me that day. Not cold exactly, but careful. My mother kept touching my arm and saying how beautiful everything looked. My father stayed near the bar. The ceremony was at 4, golden hour light coming through the barn doors, and I cried a little when my sister walked in, because she looked genuinely happy, and I wanted that for her. I have always wanted that for her. I have always wanted that for her. The reception started. The band played. Toasts were made. My name was not mentioned once. Then came the moment I had not expected, even though I should have. My father stood up during the dinner hour, before the cake, and clinked his glass. People quieted down. He was not supposed to give a speech. The program listed only the best man and the maid of honor, but my father has never let a program tell him what to do. He talked about my sister. He talked about her husband. He talked about the kind of life they were going to build together. He talked about family and sacrifice and love and all the things that sound right when you're not looking at them too closely. Then he looked at me. He said that sometimes family gives you more than you can ever repay. He said that sometimes a gift comes from an unexpected place. He said that in honor of this beautiful day, the family had decided. He said the family, that my sister and her new husband would be receiving a very special wedding gift. He paused for effect. The whole room was watching. He said my condo. He said my address. He said the approximate value. He said it like it was already done. The room made a sound. Not applause, not quite, more like a collective intake of breath. A shifting weight, the sound 300 people make when they're not sure whether to clap or stay still. My sister turned to look at me with an expression I have replayed many times since and still cannot fully decode. Her husband was already smiling. I stood up. I don't know exactly what I planned to say. I know that my voice was level, and I know that the microphone wasn't necessary for people to hear me because the room was very quiet. I said that wasn't happening. My father turned to look at me. I said the condo was mine. I had bought it myself. It was not a family asset, and it had not been discussed with me, and it was not going to be given to anyone. Someone at a table near the back made a small sound. A chair scraped. My father took 3 steps toward me and said my name in the way he used to say my name when I was 12 and had done something he considered embarrassing. I know what that voice means. I know what it precedes. I still didn't move. He grabbed my arm, hard enough that I knew it would bruise. I pulled back. He didn't let go. I pulled again and he shoved me. Not a punch, not exactly, but a shove with enough force behind it that I went sideways into the edge of a wooden chair and felt something give in my side with a sensation that was very cold and then very hot. I hit the floor. The room was completely silent. I remember the tablecloth next to my face. I remember the bluegrass band had stopped mid-song. I remember someone saying, "Oh my God." I remember my sister saying Daddy, not to stop him, just Daddy, the way you say someone's name when you're surprised. My father straightened his jacket. I got up. My side was wrong. Something was very wrong with my side, and breathing hurt in a specific, focused way that I recognized from a rib injury I had in college. I picked up my clutch from where it had fallen. I walked toward the exit. Someone near the door, a woman I didn't know, a friend of the groom's family, put her hand on my arm gently and asked if I was okay. I said I needed some air. She said she had called 911. I said, oh. I sat down on the front steps of the barn and waited for the ambulance and listened to the bluegrass band inside start playing again, tentatively, because nobody had told them what else to do. 2 fractured ribs. That was the ER verdict. 2 fractured ribs and a bruised hip and a prescription for pain medication. I filled but barely used because I needed to think clearly. My sister texted me at midnight. The text said, "I'm so sorry this got out of hand. Please know we had nothing to do with Dad's announcement. We would never want to upset you. We hope you feel better soon. The offer still stands if you change your mind." The offer still stands. I put the phone face down on the hospital bed and looked at the ceiling for a long time. Here's what I should tell you. The part the story actually requires. I had been building a paper trail for 6 weeks before the wedding. I'm a financial analyst. Building paper trails is not something I do when I'm scared. It's something I do when I'm prepared. After the Applebee's dinner, I called a real estate attorney friend of mine. We had gone through the same CPA exam prep course 4 years earlier. And I told her what my parents had asked me. She said she'd never seen a legal transfer of property completed without the owner's signature and notarization, but she said she'd seen families try. She said, "Let's just make sure your ducks are in a row." We made sure. I recorded the Applebee's conversation on my phone, not because I planned to use it, but because I'm 31, and I have learned that documentation is the difference between being believed and being gaslit. I also, and I recognize this sounds dramatic but stay with me, had contacted my building management and the county deed office and confirmed that no paperwork had been filed with my name on it. I had made sure my locks were current and my renter's insurance was paid, and I had emailed my attorney a summary of events dated 2 weeks before the wedding, so when I left the ER at 2 a.m. with 2 fractured ribs, what I had was not just an injury, what I had was a record. The assault charge, and it was an assault charge, my father was charged with simple assault under Tennessee Code, Section 39-13-101, was filed the following Monday. Not by me initially, by the responding officer at the scene, because there had been witnesses and there had been visible injury, and that's how the law works when those two things are true. My filing of a formal complaint 2 days later added to the record. My parents did not believe I would follow through. I know because my mother called me every day for 9 days, and each call began with some version of "You're really gonna do this to your own father?" My father did not call. My sister called once and said she hoped we could all find a way to move forward. I asked her what moving forward looked like to her. She said she just meant as a family. I said I needed her to be more specific. She didn't call again. My attorney sent a formal cease and desist to my parents and my sister and her husband, documenting the attempted transfer, the announcement at the wedding, and the physical altercation. She was clear, precise, and not unkind, the way good legal writing always is. She explained that any further attempt to claim, transfer, encumber, or publicly represent ownership interest in my property would be met with civil action. The response from my sister's husband's family attorney came back within a week. He conceded all points, quickly and without pushback, which told me everything I needed to know about how viable their position had actually been. My father entered a pre-trial diversion program in June. No jail time, but a record and conditions, and the requirement that he attend an anger management program, which my mother described to a mutual family friend as humiliating, and which I described privately to no one as the absolute minimum. I did not attend any family events that summer, not the 4th of July cookout, not my cousin's graduation party, not my aunt's 65th birthday. I sent a card to my aunt. She called me and said she didn't fully understand what had happened, but that she was glad I was okay and that she loved me and that the family would figure it out. I appreciated her saying that. I did not tell her what figuring it out would require. What it would require, I knew, was an acknowledgement I was not going to get. Not from my father, who believed I had betrayed the family by involving the law. Not from my mother, who had decided that my refusal to give up the condo had caused every subsequent event like a first domino. Not from my sister, who had absorbed the story she needed to absorb in order to keep her marriage and her relationship with our parents and her version of herself intact. I understood all of that. Understanding it didn't make it smaller. There is a coffee shop near my office where I go on Thursday mornings before anyone else arrives at the firm. They know my order. They start making it when they see my car pull in. I sit at the corner table near the window and I watch Nashville wake up. The delivery trucks, the people in scrubs ending night shifts, the runners, the dog walkers, and I drink my coffee and I do not perform okayness for anyone. That's the part people want to know about. The after. Whether I regret it. Whether I miss them. I miss the family I thought I had. I miss the version of my father that existed before I cost him something he wanted. I miss my sister, specifically, and the way you miss someone who is still alive but has chosen a different language than you. But I don't miss being the infrastructure. I don't miss calculating how much of myself I could give away and still have enough left to function. I don't miss the calls that began with, "How are you?" and ended with, "So I just need." I still own my condo. I had it repainted last fall, a warm white in the living room, a deep green in the bedroom. I bought a couch that cost more than I had ever spent on furniture, because I could and because I'd spent years choosing the practical thing over the thing I actually wanted, and at 31, in my own home that I kept and paid for and will continue to pay for. I decided I was done choosing the practical thing. My ribs healed. The bruise on my arm faded in 3 weeks. The part that took longer to heal was smaller and harder to point to. It lives somewhere between the sternum and the stomach, and occasionally it wakes me up at 3 a.m. and says, "What if you had just given them what they wanted?" And then I'm awake, and the city is quiet outside my window, and I think about that question the way you think about a door you've already walked through. What if I had? What if I had handed over the thing I earned and the life I built and the proof that I was capable of building it? What if I had given that away to keep the peace? What would I be keeping the peace inside of? The answer comes back the same way every time. I wouldn't be keeping anything. I would just be less. So I turn over and the city hums and I go back to sleep in the bedroom I painted green, and the couch I chose for no reason other than that I loved it waits in the living room and my condo is mine, and I am enough and I am still here. I've thought a lot about the chain of events. Not obsessively, but the way you turn a stone over in your hand when you're trying to understand its weight. Every action in this story had a consequence that was completely predictable, if you were willing to look at it straight. My father believed that love was leverage, that because he had raised me, some portion of everything I built belonged to him to distribute as he saw fit. That belief did not appear overnight. It was reinforced every time I wired money without being asked twice. Every time I said yes before I'd even finished hearing the question. Every time I made myself smaller so the family dynamic could stay comfortable. I participated in that system for years. I'm not saying that to assign blame to myself. I'm saying it because it's true, and because the truth of it matters more than the comfort of pretending I was only ever a victim. The moment I said no at that Applebee's, something shifted. Not for them. Not yet. For me. I said no and I felt the shape of the word in my mouth, and I thought, that's what that sounds like. I had forgotten. You can forget the sound of your own limits when you've been trained not to use them. What my father did at that wedding was not an accident of temper. It was the logical conclusion of a story he had been writing for 30 years, a story where my success was a family resource and my refusal was a betrayal. He had never been told no and made to live with it. Every no I had given before that night had been walked back, softened, converted into a partial yes. This time it wasn't. And when a person has never learned that no is a complete sentence, they sometimes respond to it with their hands instead of their words. That's not psychology I invented. That's just what I watched happen. What I want to say. What I think about on Thursday mornings at that corner table is that the preparation mattered as much as the refusal. The recording. The attorney. The paper trail. Saying no is necessary, but it is not sufficient. You also have to be willing to stand inside the no when it gets expensive, when it costs you the holiday table and the family group chat, and the version of yourself who believed that if you were good enough and generous enough and patient enough, the people who raised you would eventually see you clearly. They may not. That's the part nobody tells you. You can do everything right and still lose the relationship. The no is still worth it. My ribs healed. My condo is still mine. I painted the bedroom a deep green because I wanted to, which sounds small and is not small at all. The thing about integrity, and I mean integrity in the plainest sense, the sense of being structurally whole, not crack down the middle, is that it requires you to keep your word to yourself, even when everyone around you is arguing that you should break it. That's harder than it sounds. It costs more than most people are willing to pay, but the alternative is a version of your life that was built to accommodate everyone else's comfort at the direct expense of your own, and at some point you look around at what you've constructed and realize there's no room in it for you. I chose room for myself. I chose it late and it hurt, and I would choose it again without hesitation. That's the only thing I know for certain.